So we've you may know some of these folks already, but let me do kind of quick introductions and then we can get started on the conversation. So hello everybody, Matt Volm, CEO of RevOps Co-op, a global community of 13,000 plus folks in revenue operations. If you're not a member already, you definitely should join. We've got a free membership option. We will throw the link to that into the chat. And then with me, I have James McArthur, who is a director of RevOps over at New, and Jen Igartua, who is the CEO of Go Nimbly. And so let me, I guess, James, I'll pass it off to you to add anything to that professional introduction. And then I know normally I'll ask everyone for some sort of interesting personal kind of factoid, but I thought maybe I'd switch it up and have a more direct question for you both today, which is I'm stealing this from something I learned a couple weeks ago, but I'd like to hear what your first job was ever and
Ooh.
how old you were and what your job was. So add anything to your professional introduction in terms of your job now, and then let's hear what your first ever job was way back in the day.
Jen, you can
Me
go.
first? Wow.
Yes.
Oh, he's just
Chivalrous.
passing it off to you. I
He's
was
such a he's such a chivalrous man.
yeah.
My name's Jenny Igartua. Like Matt said, I'm the CEO of Go Nimbly. We're a revenue operations consulting company. I started off my career at a company called Blue Wolf. For anybody that has been in the space for a while, they were the first kind of SI to Salesforce. Our CEO Barrage and Mark Benioff knew each other from Oracle and started the company at the same time. Later got bought by IBM. The interesting thing about that is I was the first hire for their marketing automation practice. So I was in a space of it that everybody was focused on sales and sales productivity and Salesforce. And I was coming in as an Eloqua expert, then Marketo, then HubSpot, fill in the blank. And what I realized pretty early on was everything I did in this platform was affecting, everything that was integrated. And there was nothing that I did top of funnel that if I didn't have sales buy-in mattered. And so I started to become really obsessed with why are these two teams so misaligned when we're actually super aligned? Like we're trying to do the same thing. Why aren't we mad at finance? Why are we mad at each other? Fast forward a few years, I started Go Nimbly, and we've been lucky to work with really incredible companies. I started the company with Twilio as my first customer, and they're still here today. I didn't know who they were either. I was like, okay, great, first customer. And then I was like, oh shit, I really nailed this one. And from then we've worked with companies like Zendesk and Intercom and Watershed and Coursera. First job. And also I have a little side hustle. I make board games. So I have a game company called Pillbox Games. I'll put a promo code in the chat later on when Matt puts his. And first job. So I've come to terms with it since I didn't realize this. I had a hard time with the word entrepreneur for a long time. I think I thought of it as male. I think I had like a almost imposter syndrome about calling myself that. And I just imagined that you had to like start a business in a garage and make it a multi-billion-dollar business to be able to call yourself an entrepreneur. But looking and reflecting back at being young, I was starting businesses all the time. Like I lemonade stands, and the first one I ever did was $5 a bag of leaves, and I would go around and rake all my neighbors' leaves and charge them $5 a bag. And I did not squish them down. I left them fluffy. I maximized revenue right away.
I love that. Hustling from the very early
That's
days.
right.
All right, James, what about you?
So my name's, as Matt mentioned, my name's James McArthur, Director of RevOps at New. We are Salesforce native quote to cash. Been here about a year and a half. Started out I kind of have three starting points in my journey. One was very much like dream vocation based high school work, which was I worked in a hospital for like
Wow.
$7.25 an hour, and just ran around and did stuff. And it was cool until I learned that all doctors get sued a lot, and I decided not to become a doctor. Then I had my first job, which like I don't consider the hospital work a job. I was there for 4 years, but it wasn't really like a job, which was working at Starbucks, where I still got paid $7.25 an hour.
Oh,
but now I also got to clean the floors and make everyone's drinks and get yelled at, which was great. So that kicked off about 5 years of me doing a bunch of retail work, from Dick's Sporting Goods, Best Buy, the whole nine. Great time. What a time to be alive. And then my first adult job was working I made the illustrious jump from selling fitness equipment at Dick's Sporting Goods to being basically a glorified intern at a UBS for a private wealth management group in March of 2008, right as the world collapsed in on itself.
Yeah.
And then spent a year and a half in what I can only describe as the worst environment I've ever seen in my life, watching a lot of people lose a lot of money, and also watching 75% of my colleagues get let go in like 8 different things. And eventually my name came up, and I was entry-level person going up against PhDs for jobs. So went and started a restaurant, and that was my first intro into entrepreneurship. And since then, I got bit pretty hard by the startup bug through that process. And Matt, we've talked about that a lot. Jen, we've talked about that a lot. But we can do that. We can go through that whole thing in another webinar. We don't need to do that today. But yeah.
You forgot the most important highlight in your journey.
Oh yeah. So I was at a crypto VR startup, which surprise, imploded in on itself. And I had noticed that someone from Go Nimbly, who was hiring RevOps consultants, was looking at my LinkedIn profile the day before, and it was Jen. And I messaged her the day after. It happened to be the exact day that the company decided to shut down and fire all of us. And I guess it's not firing at that point, but still, it felt bad. And then very shortly thereafter, started working at Go Nimbly, where I got to work with some of the coolest people and greatest clients I have ever had in my consulting career, which is great.
That's awesome. Wow. All right. So we've got crypto VR startups. We've got Elqua experts. We've got everything. My first job, I was 10. My mom made me go pick stones in a farmer's field in Wisconsin for 40 hours a week, getting paid $5 an hour. So there was a reason why I decided to go to college and not do the manual labor thing. But from first jobs to current jobs, where we are talking about, again, today, especially when it comes to CPQ, but I think across the revenue tech stack, a lot of different tools that we use, a lot of technology and automations that we use across all the different areas. And again, those things are all meant to help us and do our jobs better, more effectively, but a lot of times they can actually produce the exact opposite results. And so we're going to walk through a couple of different call it themes around this topic today, and get some specific tactics, tips, tricks, lessons learned, things to avoid from Jen and James as we kind of do this. So I guess, James, why don't you kind of get us started on this and just kind of talk through some of these different kind of buckets here in terms of kind of getting started on this topic.
Yeah, so one of the key things when it comes to automation is that it's become wildly easy. And we've seen this with Flow over the last few years, especially in the last year. They put out a ton of things that have really increased efficacy, as has HubSpot. And with this automation, people are starting to come to the realization, and hopefully today we can kind of force the realization that when you're working with a CRM, when you're working with a product, you're working with a database. And so we put together some themes on this, which is like, hey, how do I avoid technical debt? And I put a little spoiler alert, which is you can't. We'll go into a little more detail on that. Number one thing that we can kind of triple down on, which is always build for the company you're going to be. And Jen and I both have a lot of stories around that. We can both talk to like what that actually means, because it doesn't mean build for the company you're going to be in 5 years, but it does mean planning ahead and creating structure. And then the thing we've all heard since we were kids, which is the KISS principle: keep it simple, And I'm not going to call anyone here stupid because you're all smart because we're here. And so really just whatever you do, approach it with simplicity in mind, approach it with intentionality. And we can talk through some of the ways that we've seen that go wrong as well.
Yeah.
We can go next.
All right.
All right.
Let's talk
You wanna
about
go?
tech debt. How to avoid it.
All right. So Jen,
Yeah.
what is kind of the top line for you when I say how do you avoid technical debt? What comes to your mind right away?
Well, this is the little spoiler alert we talked about, which is if you, I don't know the size company. Actually, could people put in the chat, what company size you're at, like number of employees, how big your sales team, give me something. But generally speaking, if you are in the early stages, if you truly consider yourself a startup, don't worry about trying to scale. Because what you need to figure out is you need to figure out how, like, are you selling? Do you have product market fit? What are your processes? There's no reason to step back. I think that that's I don't know what it's like, a red herring that, is all over LinkedIn as people tell you you have to build for scale. You don't. You will, if you survive this stage of company, you'll have money later. You'll have money later and you'll do the annoying tech debt project and it's fine. I would don't quote me on this, but like build in production, whatever, just run. Like you're at that point. You're gonna get to an inflection point where that's no longer scalable, right? Where you typically it's you can no longer, I don't know, you go from a handful of reps to 10 to 20. You're looking to double. And that's sort of the first point here, which is, in my experience, anytime the company has doubled in size, you're running a new company. All your existing processes are going to break. Think about real simple. If I've got 5 reps, I can have a queue that people go and find their leads and they can talk to each other and there's enough information I can keep up with all the deals. I get to 10, I need to go put lead routing processes. I need to make sure that accounts are assigned. Like I am now running a very different team and a very different infrastructure. And so keep in mind that, as your company doubles, you're just running a different company and you can't build a perfect scalable system at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's something that I know I've experienced, which is largely that moment when a company all of a sudden raises 80, $100 million and they start hiring hundreds of people. They'll go from 120 people up to 400 in a matter of months. And all of a sudden, you walk in and you don't recognize anyone. There are entire teams you've never seen in your life before. Sure. And at that point, that's where we end up coming in a lot of times, which is people get to that point and they go, okay, we have all these teams trying to build new products. We have all these new salespeople. Then all of a sudden, I can't shout across the room to my finance team what this price is going to be. All that stuff. It's just every time that happens, you end up with a new company. Like, what are some of the times you've seen this go wrong, where someone has either over-indexed on protecting from technical debt and hindered growth, or the other way? Yeah.
I won't name any names, but I'll tell you both use cases. I started working for a company that had a handful of reps, and their kind of head of RevOps, very protective over doing things correctly. So a very, very stringent deployment process where everything that it took, like now their system is beautiful and it's always built to best practice, but quite frankly, best practice a lot of time is also a lot of APEX, which is really hard to manage. The deployment process was very thorough, every use case documented, deployed. It's beautiful, but ultimately it's stuff that we're going to scrap in the future because as they scale, they're not going to need it and they're slowing down every process. So a deployment would take days for a field when it should be a minute. And so you can just over-index early. Now, the opposite side, quite frankly, I don't think it's necessarily not building for scale early enough, etc. It's not being proportionate to where you are as a business. And that's a thing that you're going to need to pause and figure out, like, what inflection point am I at? How complex, is my org? Where am I going? And make sure that you're kind of pausing and building for that moment. And I use proportionate a lot because there's no perfect answer. It's not number of employees or number of systems or where you're at. When you're building a revenue operations team, your technology, your processes, your DevOps, all of that needs to be proportionate to where your business is and what your roadmap is. It's like, I got to know what I'm building and what I'm building towards to build the right infrastructure and the right team. And that's what takes, big brains and a lot of reflection to be able to understand where that's at. There's no perfect, hey, here it is. It's building for the company that you're trying to build.
And if I can read between the lines there a little bit, it's like planning ahead and making sure that you're trying to solve the problems within the time it's going to take you to fix them, which is you can't, if you have a problem quoting, like we've talked with the company, and again, not going to name any names, where they very early built for a PLG motion on their website.
Sure.
They custom coded everything. And now it takes them, they have 8 developers, 2 project managers, and a whole team of deal desk people just to manage that process. And they have turned what should be an easy engine for growth into a true body problem. And when I say body problem, I mean a problem you just have to throw bodies at. And so don't get to that point and have your board going, well, we need to cut money. Well, this team is really huge. Why are we managing this process? Don't get to that point and then have to make a decision on a product and try to rush an implementation on a really complex thing, getting yourself to the next stage of this. It's basically like plan ahead and start work. If you're doing a CPQ implementation, give yourself 4 months to figure it out. Give yourself 5-6 months.
That feels fast. So, we're talking a lot in hyperboles and like, I just want to make sure that like we're bringing it back, which is don't let RevOps be a roadblock. Like that's the biggest thing that I coach people on that are building a RevOps team. The moment you get to a point where you've allowed your systems and processes to get so misaligned with what your business objectives are, that you are now saying, I can't deploy that. I can't do that. Sorry, we can't roll out that new pricing. Sorry, we can't roll out that new product. It's going to take 6 months. Then it's very, very hard to pull that back. It's very hard to then get a seat at the table, be that strategic function. You're now a roadblock to the go-to-market teams. And it's seldom that you can crawl back out of that.
Yeah, the systems trap is deep and bad. Go ahead, Matt.
I have a question for both of you, because we've been talking about call it like how to avoid tech debt, the fact that you can't, and then but I guess maybe one, I don't know, like I'll say basic question is like, what do we mean by tech debt, and are there different types? Because like I heard you, James, just bring up the example of like, oh, we thought we were doing PLG, we just started to build some stuff, right, some custom code, and like now it's like, oh my gosh, this is like over engineered, and we've got all this stuff out there, and like what's our business going to be going forward? And then the example Jen gave of moving slow, right? So it's like, well, no, we're not going to push stuff out fast, right? And kind of get in the way. So are there different, call it elements, I guess, that people should be considering as they look at this? And to your point, Jen, of what you mentioned before on, again, being more strategic, like, I don't know, how do people navigate that?
I think maybe I'll clarify a few things. Like there's symptoms and then there's the cause, right? And so if tech debt is the cause, the symptom is I can't move at speed. My velocity's down, my innovation's down because I won't be able to deploy certain features. Here's a really dumb example. You customize the amount field on the opportunity. You've decided that you don't want to use their amount field. You want one called ARR, and you go and create a bunch of processes around that. Well, now I can't integrate with Gong's forecasting because Gong does it out of the box. I've just created tech debt because I decided to customize something that didn't need to get customized. It could be as tactical as that. In a bigger picture, it can be code that wasn't written very well, that fires too many times, that slows down your system, that makes deployments really complicated because I don't have enough code coverage. So now I can't deploy. So now my team is building in production and getting away with it. And that's like, hey, my infrastructure is just broken. And that's really what it comes down to. And I know I'm getting a little bit ahead of ourselves in a different slide, but when we think about what to protect, you have to protect that infrastructure. So, it's go out of the box as much as possible, protect the core things that aren't going to change. And when you're talking about a new feature, when you're sitting down, and if you're doing this in a very like thoughtful, programmatic way, and you're talking about requirements and you're documenting them, don't forget to take a pause and a beat and think about, great, what are the features that we need, that we're going to need in 1 year, that we need to make sure we don't build against. We may not be building them today, but we have to document them. And I think that's what happens a lot, is we build for today, and today's process is not what you need next year.
Yeah. And you said the word twice, and I just kind of want to double down on it, which is documentation, which is when you're building flows in one way or another, make it so that anyone can come in. I call it the babysitter test, which is can someone with absolutely no knowledge of the system come in, see it, and understand what's going on, build everything with that philosophy, and have it all documented. Because what can end up happening, and we've all been there, where a flow is firing in the background and you have to go turn on Sonar or some other tool to actually figure out which flow or which Apex trigger is actually driving an action, because or you have to dig through a debug log. Like it's just like, document your everything, so then you know where things are coming from, and think about this as a database. That's really the core that I would say.
Easier said than done, of course. Like, I wish I could tell you that Go Nimbly's org is beautiful. I did learn one thing from my work with PagerDuty. PagerDuty is fantastic at this. I find that very developer first type companies typically are. It's in their ethos. But the really basic thing, use descriptions on all your fields and all your flows, etc., and just put a link to a Notion page. It doesn't have to be this like kind of beautiful database. The one that I always do, imagine you're creating a field for a reporting use case, or it's a one-time thing, just write it on there. I've also written before for early stage companies, this is a hacky solution, I expect this to be deprecated at some point. Like, get ahead of somebody looking at it, be like, why'd you build this? It's like, well, my hands were tied, we had a deployment, the product was launching, I had to do it this way. But just documenting that even in the description fields will save you a ton of headache of trying to remember why you built something.
Awesome. Cool. All right, next slide.
All right, so tech deck to the point you made early on, James, about building for the company you will be, and kind of then the big, I guess, question mark, or I don't know, asterisk on that is, right, well, will be when? Today, like, will be in a couple hours, the company I will be in a few hours, in a day, a week, in months, a year. How should folks be thinking about this?
Think about the time horizon your business is planning on, because obviously as you scale, that horizon shifts out. Like, all of this is based on scale. But if you're in a startup and you're flying by the seat of your pants, looking at the line we had in the last slide, which is stay scrappy, build what you have to build to get off the ground. When you're in a startup, the difference of success or failure can be hours of work. So don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Definitely not early on. But as you're scaling, once you start having everything you do is impacting multiple users, everything you do is impacting customers, the moment you're doing that, you should not be thinking less than 6 months out. Preferably, you're thinking 18 months out. And it's thinking about the company you're going to be, because the reality is some of these systems do take 12 to 15 months to install and get right. And because you're not only talking about building it, you're talking about connecting it into everything else. You're talking about enabling your team, all of those things. Jen, what's your take on that?
It's one thing that's on here with just like establish a product management philosophy. Something that has really helped me is, as revenue operators, we can borrow a lot from product teams, right? Product teams they've built products and processes for an outcome. Like, our end users are the go-to-market team, and our job is to make them create really seamless customer experiences. And what we're deploying are features. And we need to make sure that we have a core infrastructure where we can be deploying and building our, work on typically on top of a Salesforce or a HubSpot. We're typically using other tools, but we're still developing and deploying features. So if we can think about like what we're trying to do, what our users are trying to do, where they're going, and have that North Star of like that great experience that we're creating for them, you can anchor back to, should I build this feature? Does it actually impact the majority of users? Is this actually important for the outcome of them being able to capture, retain, maximize revenue? If you can have that mindset, it's really amazing. I've said before that I wouldn't trust a product team without a roadmap. Why are we trusting RevOps teams without roadmaps? Like we need to know what we're building. If we're in that reactive place where we're just taking like, hey, I need X, you're building tech debt because nobody is pausing and thinking, hey, do we really need this? Is this the maximum number of users? Are we making impact? We're not building for one company, right? Or one client. We're building for everybody collectively. So I think that has really helped me take a pause and think about like, all right, I need to be looking at, the product that I'm building, like what is the vision and what are all those features that I need? And it's like, it's not just Salesforce, it's our go-to-market platform. That's what we're building.
Yeah, and to that end, it's like thinking about it from product team, it's productize your work as you can, which is like, yeah, understand what you're going to be putting in through CI/CD, which is like, what are your minor releases? What are the quick fixes? What are your major releases? What is your actual guideline for these people? What do release notes look like? We have all read Salesforce release notes. Everybody I know who works in that system takes 3 hours out of their day to go through and actually like read everything and watch the really way too long rollout webinar that they do. And the reality is we need to be focusing very much on productizing our environments because you're tying in Stripe, you're tying in Salesforce, you're tying in Gong, you're tying in Outreach, you have HubSpot, you have whatever HubSpot's hooked into, which could be a dozen different things that aren't, and then you have your data warehouse and anything else that's hooked in. It's focus on uptime, build a true product for your go-to-market team.
Yeah, and to your point about documentation is like, what's a North Star? Look what product teams put out. You can search for a field, you can search for a feature, and you're seeing exactly what it is. I have not candidly seen any RevOps team nail this. Like it's not, I'm not suggesting that anybody here go, oh, we're really behind. But I do think about how amazing it would be is if we could hold ourselves to that standard that we could borrow from this team that is really nailing it.
And so, question for you both on, again, like we've been talking a little bit about, we talked a little bit on the last slide too, like companies, how things shift or evolve as companies grow. And so curious, like, thinking about like, maybe we take this a little stage by stage, like if you think about the early stage company and startup, right, who maybe, RevOps team of one, small RevOps team, right, they're moving fast, things are changing every day, every week, they're trying new things, they're buying new technology. And again, like thinking about kind of the topic for today of automations and kind of connecting all this stuff and how it can make your life easier. Like, how should they think about like building for the company that they will be? Like, what should their timeline or maybe horizon be? And then I know, like, Jen, you brought up some of those, like one of those gotchas before of like, hey, when you're buying a tool like a Gong, keep in mind they use like the out of the box amount field, right? So if you've now done all this stuff early on to be, where all of your workflows are now centered around some other custom field, you've kind of screwed yourself a little bit once you get there. So like maybe we start there, like that early stage company, right? Like what time horizon should they be looking at in terms of building and any of those other gotchas on the automation side?
Yeah. I work mostly with mid-market. So James, I'll let you talk early stage and I can talk a little bit about, what I hope a mid-market company comes to me with.
Yeah. So early stage, it's very much this first bullet point, which is understanding what's core, building out, keeping it simple, keeping it as easy as you can, because you don't know the questions you need to ask early stage. be scrappy, get people the tools they need to survive. You might be in a Google Sheet. You might be, honestly, I have built a Google Sheet CRM before. It's not pretty. Nobody wants to use it beyond a certain scale, but it works when everyone's sitting in a room yelling at each other. Use HubSpot's free product. Use Salesforce's cheaper product, and like go in and make things as simple as possible. Like stay scrappy legitimately until you get to a point where you can afford a go-to-market system and it is more, and you have more than one person or people in more than one location that need to coordinate who they're talking to. Until you get to that point, just don't worry about it. From 1 to 5, if everybody's in the same place, you can do a lot of this via just Slack, honestly. And so having a basic CRM at that point, and then as you scale, it's just going to be putting on those pieces. But once you get to a Series A and your reporting requirements, or you raise a serious round, or you have investors of any kind, you're priced, so you need to start showing growth. That moment, you need to start getting pretty serious about reporting, because every single quarter, someone's going to ask, hey, what's the funnel look like? And your answer can't be, I think it's this. Or they're going to go, what's revenue going to look like? And this is really important, which is early stage, nail like simple billing. Until the moment where you're processing 10 to 15 orders a day and your team has to go through and manage all those invoices, don't go nuts with billing. It's don't go CPQ too early. When you need it, buy it 6 to 12 months in advance, but make sure you understand like the systems, all of that. I mean, Jen, I'm kind of rambling here, but this is up to the point where you step in and
I'll tell you a couple like core areas that I am working with. Say a company that's got more than 250 employees. You've got good systems, like things are rolling and you're growing, right? This is something I've said to a lot of people. It's very easy to solve problems when there's no change. If you give me a company today and you tell me this is our team and our processes and how we sell, awesome, I'm building something beautiful. The thing is, it's not, if we're successful, you're growing, you're adding, you're adding new motions, you're adding new teammates, you're adding new roles, and I gotta be changing all the time. So candidly, it's always what we need is agility. We need to be able to pivot. We need to build a team with the right skill sets, the technology that is flexible enough for us to pivot every time somebody has a new motion, new product, new pricing, etc. So like we're building for change. And I'm looking for a few core things. By the time that you come to me, by the time you've got a couple hundred employees, I want you to have a deployment process, and I want you to have backups of Salesforce. Please, dear God, have a backup. It is wild to me how far along the process I am where people don't have it. We love GearSet. They do backups in a deployment process, but fill in the blank. There's tons out there. It could be up to a couple grand a month, so it's not like super cheap, depending on the number of users, etc., that you have. So there's that. I want to see you thinking about change, and James did tease some of this. There is core work. I call it like running the machine, right? Business as usual work. Make sure that you've got a team that can do that. Nobody should be having trouble creating contracts. Nobody should be having trouble closing opportunities. Leads need to get assigned to the right person with alerts, like that kind of core, like leads are coming in all the way through renewing. We have those processes. Our team can do their job. Then on the other side, there's innovation work. That's like we're changing how we do our work. We're deploying a new product, a new feature. We're bringing in a new platform. We're bringing in new insights. That's like innovation work. Your team has to have the capability of doing both. They can't be so bogged down with business as usual that they can't innovate, they can't change. The companies that I've seen sometimes grow fastest have some of the least innovative processes because they've just kind of grown, and they've grown despite their operations, quite frankly. And then I would look at core. Whenever you talk about core, I'll give a couple categories. One of the biggest areas that I look at is handoffs. If you hear the word handoff, there is a process that needs to be put in place that is scalable. Sales to marketing, right? So like, how are leads getting tagged and handed off and assigned and alerted in a way that makes the sales team really effective? How am I tracking campaigns and campaign members so I can answer those attribution questions? I could do a whole thing on attribution. I've got hot takes there, but there's that piece. SDR to AE, same thing. How are we handing off so that the salesperson doesn't feel like they repeated, or I'm sorry, your customer doesn't feel like they repeated themselves again because we didn't capture notes and send them to the AE. Then you've got the same thing from this is wild. We lose a lot of goodwill with our new customers here. They sign a contract, they're excited to get started, and then they don't hear from you for like 2 weeks. And then they're like, hi, I'm the CSM. Tell me about yourself. Can you fill out this form? Wild. This is like such a peak experience. They just said yes, they're excited. Like, capitalize on that. But SDR to onboarding handoff, onboarding to CSM, all that, get that, like, focus on those areas, make sure that those are really good. And then I would do op infrastructure is one of the biggest things. And that's where you can call James, but it's basically like, do I have new business, renewal, and expansion tag? Do I have products, start, end dates? Like, capture that early, because when we talk about tech debt, whenever we've done any sort of CPQ implementation, the hard part is we got to go double click into contracts and verify start and end dates and what products they bought and for how much, because nobody's tracked it anywhere. We just had an op that said $100,000, and you're like, great, for what? And so start tracking that early. Products, start dates, how much for each product. Was it usage based? Was it by the user? Like, just nail that. And all revenue fields that go along with it. Try to go out of the box as much as possible. And then the last thing is KPI and activity tracking. Try to get that in a really great way. Are you tracking emails, calls, etc., that are going out in a consistent fashion?
Yeah. To that end, once you get past small advertisement, once you get past the point where you're where you want to have an out of the box solution end to end, give me a call. Call New. Well, not me. Call New. They're we got a whole team that does this, and I'm not a part.
He'll put in an 800 number for you in the chat. Matt, we do have a question in the chat that I think is somewhat relevant. An anonymous attendee posted, I've heard a lot of mentions of Gone, specifically thoughts on Clary as a tool, pros, cons. All right, if I was a betting woman, which I am, I love to gamble, I would bet on Gong. I have bet on Gong. They're a partner. We're really close to them. I just think in the consolidation space, give them 1 or 2 years and they're going to nail it all, right? From forecasting to obviously call recording and automating kind of like insights from call recording into Salesforce. They've got their Engage now, which is kind of competing with your Outreach and SalesLoft, and their forecast competes with Clary. I would say, every platform where they started is strongest, but they're all trying to come and do the same thing now, right? They're all trying to build each other's features. And so it's a little bit of a race right now, where Clary is the strongest in forecasting. It's what they've been doing, forever. And they've got that really nailed. Where like SalesLoft and Outreach have really strong sequencing. It's like they're all trying to do the other features. Gong's call recording and call intelligence is strongest. And so you're all trying to come back and do what everybody else is doing. And Gong's got a lot of dollars behind it and pushing that. So it's one to watch for sure. The consolidation in our space right now is really wild. But I would say, Clary does have really strong forecasting capabilities. The pro for me of like a Gong versus Clary is I do want less tools. I want less integrations. Quite frankly, people don't use every feature. When they, go with these specialized tools, you end up not using them all. So you can't go wrong with either, by the way. I've got happy clients on both. But I am loving I want a single platform, less integrations, and I can actually focus on getting features in the hands of my team is where my head's at right now.
Also, I would my take on this, which I haven't used Clary in a while, but at the time it was configuration versus customization. I will always lean towards configuration where it's already set up as a highway, where most of the things go through, and I don't have to spend a ton of time setting it up, versus something that gives me a ton of different ways to configure every aspect of it, and it takes a lot of maintenance to keep it running. Which is where I think Gong is much stronger, personally.
Yeah, so I think a couple things on that topic is one, I heard you mention this a lot, James, which was you don't need to like when you're encountering new problems, you don't need to solve those problems with a new tool, right? Meaning like you brought up, right? You can start manual, right? You don't need like the first quote you send out to a customer does not need to come from a CPQ solution, right? Like create a Google Doc,
Right.
put your branding and your logo on it, print it to PDF and like send it to them, right? Like it doesn't need to be fancy. Same thing with the CRM or any of these other tools, right? Like I always like to frame things that way too, of like, how would you solve this problem in the next like 4 hours, right? So you can't go out and buy a new tool and deploy it in that time. So like, yeah, spreadsheet process, right? What are you going to do? Like think about that first, then move to the technology side. And then the other thing, as I heard you kind of talking, was somebody on my team actually mentioned this to me the other day, which was like trying to think about like what you build for or like what's important to people is I was thinking back to someone on my team called it the rule of three, which was he knew that if someone brought up the same thing 3 times, it meant that they wanted to do it. And so got me thinking of this too, where like we've all heard those like super important things that people start asking for that they ask for once, right? Because it seems super important and then it's never brought up again. It's easy to get distracted with those things. Right. So ask the right questions, figure out if it's something that gets brought up, more than just the one time. And
Mhm.
then again, to tie things back to the automation stuff we brought up, Jen, agree with you on the call it the consolidation, right? Like just the fewer tools, the better, right? As you start to
Sure.
add more to your tech stack, you have more integrations running. You have existing automations that could get triggered that you don't want to get triggered. You now have all these duplicate properties and fields that start to get created, and all that stuff just adds more confusion. And to what James brought up, right? You have this new tool or the system that could be very hard to not only set up, but then maintain. And so those are some of
Mhm.
the challenges that you can run into if you just start adding and adding and adding
Yeah,
without thinking about where you're heading
totally.
in the future.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think that's the thing that we don't. It's really hard because we're talking like we don't want to do this work too, right? Like we get excited about a
Yeah.
new tool and a new process and whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I think what we always it's funny, even our clients want to fight us on this when we bring it up. Who's the owner ongoing on this? What's the ongoing maintenance of this new process? Do we have to check it monthly, weekly? Do we have alerts that go on? What happens if it fails? Are we releasing any future features? We all love being like, great, phase 2. Is phase 2 actually going to happen? And if not, like what actually needs to come in so that this is scalable and able to run for the next X? And that work it's really hard to force ourselves to be like, you know what? We don't have the bandwidth to manage this ongoing. We shouldn't do it even if we can get the deployment done. The cost of running it is not as low as we think it is.
Yep.
Yeah, it's you think about it, like you mentioned this earlier, which is some of the fastest scaling companies in the world, terrible operations, and the reality of unwinding all of that, because you'll end up with, we see this all the time, which is a 40 or 50 person deal desk team. You have 40 people just fixing quotes, and when you think about where you have to go to get there, there's too simple, and it's like not building in that the complexity actually needed to run the business, but at the same time, it's managing that complexity, creating the rules around that complexity, and keeping it as simple as humanly possible. Which brings us to, I think, this was your point when we were talking about this, which is like the thing Jen, what is your take on like customization versus complexity needing management, and how that pertains to kind of revenue? Because I know I'm pulling a lot of things together at once because we are running out of time.
Oh man, I honestly don't know how to answer that. How do I think about customization versus complexity? The Let's talk about the word complexity. there's a difference between complex and complicated. All right, complex means that complicated is a formula that you can solve, right? An incoming, variable, you know what the outcome is, and every time you put inputs, you get the same outputs. Complexity is not that. Complexity means that inputs can have different outputs, and that's traffic is complex. Traffic is a complex problem. When we talk about complexity, it means that we can't typically create like one linear process that is just done. And so then you get into a place where you have to create a lot of customization to make it work, a lot of different paths, so that you can have the same inputs have like 18 different, varieties. That's when you get in trouble because you start trying to solve for all of them. 80-20 rule is really important, and that means setting expectations for the broader company that we are not solving for every problem. There's a very silly example, which is like deduping processes. Do not ever, like, there's no way I'm going to get it 100% right. Like, I'm never going to get to a database without duplicates. How do I solve for 80% of them and explain to the business, why, and make sure that, hey, actually, you're going to find duplicates. And we're excited for you to find them, submit a ticket when you do. Not say, hey, we're doing a dedupe process and it's going to be beautiful. Because deduping is very complex. It's lots of inputs. It's lots of different data points. There's fuzzy matching. There's account hierarchies. We're not going to nail it. So if we actually don't have any duplicates, we probably merged some wrong ones. And so it's thinking about what is the breadth of what I'm trying to do and what is safe to do in a scalable way. That probably means leaving a portion undone.
Yeah, it's thinking about all of your data as a river and thinking about, how are you building the different forks? How are you getting the water? You're basically, when you're in RevOps, you are a plumber for data. And your job is to get
plumber.
Data. I mean, of course. But your job is to get data from the customer to your team, and then from your team back to the customer, and have that transformation happen midterm that translates to a sale. And it is an ongoing communication. And so I like to think about it as like, I'm directing the flow of water. Now, it sounds easy. Oh, it's just flowing, and but think about the moment you create too many forks, the moment you create too many different flows going out. You have to know what's in each of those flows. You have to know, and that is complexity. It's not necessarily complicated, but it does require management. And every time you add a new branch, you need to think about the process that's going to manage that branch. How are you reporting on that branch? How does it tie into a KPI? Rolling all of these things, which is why it rolls up to this keep it simple principle for me, which is like, maybe don't build the branch and just until someone goes, you know what, this is a real thing, or put a POC in place to make sure that you actually do need said branch before you roll it out.
You're very good at metaphors. I commend you for that. I'm terrible at metaphors. I like immediately go, everybody go open up your lean data and go look at that spaghetti. Like that's the visual for me that we've done too much, and go report on it. It's wild sometimes where it's like, oh, this gigantic thing, 3 people go through that. 3 people a month go through that. It's like, great. And that's causing you to not be able to edit it ever because it's so much work. And so sometimes we have to go have that conversation and say, you know what? We're actually only routing if existing account has an owner, we're routing there. And if not, we're going territory. And I'm sorry. And like on a campaign, you're allowed to put a campaign, owner, like you're allowed to do that. Otherwise you hard code it. And I'm done.
Yeah.
And like, I gotta cut out the like, if then that statements, because you end up having like 2 people go through that route and it's just not worth it.
Yeah. And that brings me back to my point about nobody being truly an expert on Eloqua, because every Eloqua instance I've ever seen was like a cascade into another cascade into like.
I built that and it was cool. And it worked every time.
Yeah. But yeah, it gets to the last bullet point on here, Jen, I think you were just speaking to between like you said, what's necessary and what's nice to have, or again, even fun to build, right? It might be fun to build some of that stuff.
Totally.
But if the output's going to be running 2 people through it,
Yeah.
And is it worth it? And I think the other thing I was thinking of, that I thought like too, because like obviously like James, you work at a company that has a CPQ, that is a CPQ product, and on this slide you're like, do not buy a CPQ solution too early. And I think that made me think of, again, like start with something simple, but keep in mind like that simple thing you start with can also evolve into something complex, right? So take the manual quoting process that I brought up, right? Start with that Google Doc, send out PDFs or DocuSign, whatever. If you grow to have 20 reps and all these variations of different product bundles and usage-based pricing versus per user pricing, and now to send out that one PDF, you need calculators and reviews from people and all this other stuff, right? That thing that started off as very simple is now actually very complex. And that means the simple thing to do is like buy a product that can help you do all those really hard things in a very simple way. So just keep that in mind, or that's, I guess, another thing I thought of is like things evolve and change. And yeah, the simple thing you start with may not be simple at
it's your needs early on can be solved with DocuSign and opportunity products. Your needs later on, once you're trying to run multiple different revenue models through the same engine, like CPQ is fintech. Fintech is like it is a financial technology, and so understanding it's really hard to unwind financial transactions once they're made. It takes a really long time because it's actual money that's changed hands. So understanding those things, don't try to sprint right out of the gate. You don't need to. I've convinced a lot of people in the last year not to buy CPQs.
He's doing great at his job. Everybody I knew is loving James. James is out here telling people not to buy his product.
I mean, once you have
trust, I like it.
Yeah. Yeah, once you're at scale, it's it's the best solution. It's the only solution.
Yeah, the interesting thing about a like CPQ implementation is like if your products and pricing isn't stable, if you're changing it every 2 months, like you're just not in a good place. So it's why early stage is really hard. Those projects, like every 3 months, somebody will change everything. And if you don't have that core infrastructure, so it's like you got to get to a place where you're selling consistently and your pricing and packaging. It will change. It doesn't have to be forever, but like hopefully you didn't spend 6 months implementing something that then you have to rip out. And if anybody's thinking about it, I will plug for James. Remember how we talked about you need 3 to 6 months? You got to start talking about it right now if you want to do it for next fiscal kind of year. If you want to do it for 2025 or January or February, you got to start talking about it now. Because the projects that we do, it's 3 to 6 months by the time you're up running.
Yeah. Yep. And it is crazy to think that we are in the month of June and before you know
it. Wild.
Yeah. So, well, we've got, I guess, 1 minute left. So, Jen, I'm going to consider that your closing remarks or parting thoughts. But James, any last thoughts or remarks for the folks before we let you all run?
Yeah, just take a minute. Honestly, it's been my theme for the last year, which is when you're starting up, and this is advice that Jen gave me years ago, which is take a beat. You don't need to run at everything. It's not everything that's brought up is not critical. As Matt said, wait till people have brought it up 3 times, then it's a real thing. Say no often. Approach things with intentionality. All of those things. Just keep it simple.
Stupid.
Document your work. Enjoy your life. Have fun.
I use my closing thought to plug your company, James, but you know.
And here's the thing. Once you reach the mid-market, remember the words, go nimbly.
Thank you, James. Appreciate you.
He did mention some things you taught him early on.
That's true.
As well. So
that's true.
Yeah. All right, y'all. Well, as always, it's super fun to be on these panel discussions with y'all. So Jen, James, thank you very much for doing this. As always, thanks to all the attendees that are out there who joined. when you get off the Zoom, if you can fill out the survey to let us know what you thought of the event today. I think it's like 2 questions. That would be awesome. But that's all I got for you. So I will see you all later. Have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you on the flip side. All right, everybody.
Thank you, Matt. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Matt.